Hello and welcome to Behind the Closed Door, a podcast that explores the dark and often sweaty hidden underworld of kink and fetish. I'm your host, Joaquin De La Torre, and, the main goal of this podcast is to destigmatize and normalize kinks and fetishes. I feel like oftentimes as adults we learn more about ourselves and learn more about what we're into, and I feel like we're scared to explore that. That could be from fear of rejection from a partner or the repercussions that your friends and loved ones might have if they learned something new about you. But I think the main thing we are going to try here is to really let people know that it's okay to be into what you're into, as long as you're not hurting nobody and consent is given. You're golden, babe. So if that's the kind of thing you're interested in learning more about, settle in, buckle up, and get ready to let your freak flag fly, babe, as we talk about kink. Now, for the first segment of today's episode, I think it's important to list out some of the qualifications I have to discuss kink and fetishes. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't got many. I don't have any academic titles in any way, shape, or form. I'm not an expert in kinks and fetishes. I'm not a huge member of the community yet. But what I do have is a down-ass attitude to try anything once, and a certain spunk and moxie that goes into it. Just to list out a few of the things I'm currently exploring, I really want to get more into pup play, which is kind of getting into pup space, and it's different for everybody, but it's essentially you get a pup mask and you put it on and you pretend to be a little cute little puppy. I'm also really into getting praised, which sounds ridiculous. I know, of course, we all like being told, good things about ourselves, but yeah, I really enjoy that. I've been finding. Another thing that I think kind of qualifies me for this is, I've been to different kink events. So I recently attended Folsom Street Fair for the first time, which was an interesting experience to say the least. And I feel like really informed my understanding of kink because I got to witness how communal it really is and how many people can come together to an event like this and explore their interest in public play, voyeurism, BDSM, rope play, piss play. I mean, I passed by the piss pool at one point, and that was such a sight. To paint the picture for you guys, I just want you to picture a small plastic blow-up pool full of sun-bathed, happy, smile from ear-to-ear adults waiting for their opportunity to get peed on by a random stranger. It was actually a beautiful sight. Now, for the next segment of today's episode, I think it's important to differentiate the differences between kinks and fetishes. So first, let's define kink. Well, kink is defined as a sexual practice that falls outside of the standard sexual norm. And the top 5 most common kinks are, at number 5, domination, number 4, cuckolding, number 3, CBT, number 2, bondage, and number 1, age play. So essentially, a kink is something that is not vanilla. Fetish, on the other hand, is defined as a desire for a specific sexual or non-sexual body part or object that must be present for one to achieve sexual arousal or enjoyment. Some of the most popular examples are objectification, cross-dressing. This is an interesting one. It's called queerophilia, which is essentially a hand fetish, and latex. So, now that we've made the distinction what is a kink and what is a fetish, I think it's really important to highlight some of the most notable examples that kink and fetish have been, displayed in popular culture. And I think the most notable example is the film 50 Shades of Grey, which explores the BDSM kink. That's when BDSM stands for bondage, domination, sadism, and masochism. And then for the fetish side of things, if you're familiar with the artist Kim Petras, at the 2021 MTV Video Music Awards, she wore a full latex bodysuit as her, red carpet look. Fun fact about latex, it's actually, many people think it's plastic, but it's not. It's actually an all-natural vegan substance that is collected and created from the sap of trees, which is actually very interesting. And it somehow ended up on my TikTok algorithm where I'm seeing the, latex collection videos, and it's super satisfying to hear them collect it. So in our second to last segment, I think it's really important to kind of go back to something I mentioned earlier, which was my, in quotes, down-ass attitude, which is just another way of saying that, I'm open-minded to sexual exploration, right? So I think the number one most important thing in exploring kink for anyone who wants to get into it is being open-minded, right? There are many times where I had explored and tried different things that I necessarily weren't into, but someone else was into, that I was hanging out or hooking up with, and I was like, sure, why not? I'll try anything once. So, for example, I think my first venture into like fetish and kink was through my first long-term relationship with my ex-partner. We were together for about a year, and he was really into feet, and so he would, lick and whatever on my feet, and it necessarily was not for me, but I enjoyed that it was something he was into, and we didn't do it often because I wasn't like particularly fond of it, just because I'm really ticklish on my feet. But I was open-minded to it, and since then I have had positive experiences with other men around my feet. So I guess it just varies. You have to try things out, see what works for you, and sometimes it's not necessarily the act but the person you're with. So in the final segment of today's episode, from one amateur kinkster to another, here are some tips on how to explore kinks more. If you're a gay male identifying person, download the app called Recon. That is where you'll find other like-minded kinksters to play with. And if you're a straight identifying person, I highly recommend checking out the app called Feeld, spelled Feeld. It is an app specifically for people looking for threesomes, but generally speaking, if you're on an app looking for a threesome, you're going to be a little bit more sex positive than other people. And lastly, if you haven't already checked out Reddit. Reddit is a great space for connecting with like-minded kinksters. Just, r/BDSM or r/ whatever specific kink you're looking for. And with that, that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, you can subscribe and rate us on whatever podcast service you're using to listen to today's show. Join us next week, where we'll be talking about chastity play, which is famously the enjoyment of just not touching yourself. Goodbye.